Alright, now that we've covered the basics of camera movements on a tripod, let's take the camera off the tripod and talk about the film style of handheld or shaky cam. The art of handheld cinematography is often found in high-intensity, high-action movies. A popular example of using this film style would be in the Bourne series. In this clip from The Bourne Identity, the rapid-fire editing and handheld close-up shots create a frantic, chaotic, and exciting feel, almost as if you are the one taking part in the action. The Hunger Games is another good example where handheld is used during the most frantic, dramatic parts of the movie, helping the viewer feel the intensity of the moment. Now, let me show you what I mean by this. I'm going to shoot the same pretend fight scene in different film styles, so you can see the impact your film style has on the intensity of the scene. So first, let's shoot the scene static from a tripod. Now let's pop the camera on my glide cam and give it some smooth movement and see how that looks. Already the scene is looking a lot more cinematic by adding that smooth 360 movement around the fight scene, and though smooth glide cam shooting is my favorite film style, for this type of scene I think I can add more intensity by taking it off my glide cam and shooting it handheld. Now, when shooting handheld, there's different levels of shakiness you can have in your movements depending on what rig you're using. If you want it to be extra shaky, then don't use any rigs at all and just put your hands directly on the camera. But if you want a less intense shake but still want some, then I'd recommend getting a rig to help steady your handheld movements. A cheap one that I like to use is the Cowboy Studio shoulder rig that you can get off of Amazon for only $26. And a lot of times I'll even use my glide cam as a handheld device by holding on to the shaft instead of using the gimbal. So now let's show you an example of the same scene shot handheld. Now you'll notice how I mimic the action of my subject. When they punch, I jolt the camera in that direction. When she does a front flip, I mimic the circular motion of the flip with my camera to help the viewer feel like they are the ones being punched and flipped in the air. In my opinion, handheld is almost always the best film style for adding intensity to a scene. Now, using the handheld film style, I'm now going to add more camera angles, add some color correction, using a wider aspect ratio by putting black bars on top and bottom, and then of course add some intense music and watch how the scene comes to life. Isn't it amazing how much the film style can change the mood of the scene? Now let's go back and watch that first static shot from the tripod and see how they compare. It almost feels like we're trying to make the scene look boring and lame by choosing to shoot it this way. And you'll notice that I used the static tripod shot at the end of my handheld scene because once the action was over and the fight was won, I cut back to the static shot to help the viewer know that the action is over and they can now relax. So it just depends on the emotion you want to convey. Do you want the fight scene to seem slow and relaxed on purpose? Then use a tripod. Do you want it to feel epic and cinematic? Then probably use a smooth glide cam shot. But if you want it to feel intense and frantic, then handheld is probably your best choice. So that's it for handheld camera movements. If you want to create an intense, vulnerable feel to your films, then this is a good film style to think about using. If you guys have any further questions about the handheld film style, please let me know.